audio yet.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful.
Good.
All right, how you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. It's a pleasure to meet you. I guess this is the new normal.
Yeah, that's right. The new normal means not shaved and in my bedroom.
So it looks
Good.
like one of the other professors is on now as well.
Good. Are you planning to show any slides or anything on screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey, Professor
Hi.
Swarnali.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good, good.
As you guys are talking, I just went to get something from the fridge.
Oh, no worries.
Good.
So let me, I'm going to share the screen, make sure that's all working. All right, so you can see that?
Yes, I can.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I will go ahead and let's see, it's running through. All right, perfect. All right. So it looks like we're good to go.
All right. You got a third person joining, colleague?
The third person joining, she's actually hopping out of her design studio
Okay.
right now. So she'll probably be on in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'm gonna hide myself from
Okay.
the video, but I'm here at 6. I'm gonna admit everyone who's waiting, and you can get started.
Beautiful,
All
beautiful.
right. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. I'm going to mute my video for a little while.
Okay. Sounds good. Hi, it's Mike again. Before I open things up, just a reminder that to monitor the chat for questions from people.
Yes, thank you. Let me set that.
Yep. Okay.
All right, perfect.
And once I open it up, people will just join the meeting. There won't be a doorbell. They'll just automatically join themselves.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
You hear now? I can't hear anything.
Hi, how you doing? Oh, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Beautiful.
I think our mic is mute.
Yeah, so everybody's mics are mute until, I guess, until we start asking some questions. All right. Yes. All right, so I'm Kwesi Daniels. I'm the Department Head of Architecture at Tuskegee University. I have one of my colleagues, Swarnali Ghosh-Dastider, and one of the other professors, Amma Asamoah, will be joining us in a little while. She's actually leaving her studio right now. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen.
I'm here, Mr. Daniels.
Oh, hey, beautiful. And so we have Amma Asamoah here. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves really quickly as we move into the presentation and discussion.
Hi, I'm Swarnali. I'm with Mr. Daniel and Professor Asamoah.
And she teaches in construction science management, and this semester has a joint engagement in architecture. However, her background is architecture and construction as well. So she's managing that design build component. Our program has a construction science management program tied to it as well. So she's leading the charge for the virtual engagement and finding ways to connect, model, physical engagement.
Thank you. I don't think even I could have done a better job. Thank you. Yes, yes.
Professor Asamoah?
Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Amma Asamoah. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Architecture at Tuskegee University. And this year I'm teaching third year architecture studio, the second half of that course, and well, the first and second half, and also design presentation.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm not going to read from the screen. As we all know, as architects, we say that's like the #1 cardinal sin, not to read your screen. But I wanted to give a quick background on how we came up with looking at this. And it actually originated out of the first ACSA session, as we realized that everybody was trying to figure out how do we address this physical modeling issue. And it seemed like we all had challenges doing that. Just real quickly, Professor Asamoah, Professor Swarnali, can you manage the chat? I can't see it when the screen is live.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
So so Professor Asamoah is doing the physical modeling, and we are as well, Professor Swarnali and I, in our design studio. And as we all know, we're having to be a lot more flexible than we normally would. And we'll talk about some of the challenges we're facing, and we assume that everyone is having some of the similar challenges. Additionally, we, coming out of that meeting last, I guess it's now, it's over a week ago or so, one of the other things was, how do we do virtual collaboration? Because the design studio is this space that there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning, and it's very difficult to imagine how you could do that virtually. And so we through some research and some things that we're exploring on our end, both before and now after Corona, we are bringing it to the stage and hoping that others will have some ideas that we can engage with. At any point in time, feel free to interrupt us. Let's make this a lively, engaging conversation, and let's explore what the new norm is. So the big conclusion about everything that's going on now is that we've never managed classes like this, right? The idea that not only are we virtual, but we have students that are all over the country, different time zones, and we're being expected to continue to conduct design studios. This is like the ultimate design problem for designers to answer. Personally, I think this is really exciting. Never have we been in a moment where architecture is having to be this nimble. I don't think architecture, design, education has really transformed too much since the Bauhaus times. And here we are now having to figure out what that looks like and doing some unprecedented things through the virtual environment. And so we know, the internet is leading this charge. Right now we're having this conversation online and using virtual programs and virtual platforms to figure this out. And so the first thing I want to talk about is physical modeling. And we'll talk about our first year studio. Professor Swarnali and I are co-teaching that. And then Professor Alison Wah will talk about some of the things she's exploring with her third year design studio. And one of the challenges that we're facing, and everybody across the country is as well, is that we have different classroom types. So we have design studios, we have lectures, we have technology, and then we have design build. And all of these have their own challenges associated with them. Tying on top of that, we have students. So we have students that are in different time zones. We have some that are on the East Coast, some of them on the West Coast, and then we're on Central Standard Time. So that has its own challenges. We also have a lot of students. We have at least 2 students that are in rural Alabama. So their internet access is not very consistent. Their computer access is also not very consistent, given that a lot of our students, we structured our studios, as everybody did, to be in-person sessions. Now, because they quickly had to move away back home, the access to computers is not as consistent as it was when they were on campus. And then also their software access is not consistent. So we'll talk about what we're doing in this, but I think the thing that we have to realize first is we have to meet students where they are, and we're trying to do that, realizing that we took a poll of our students and realized everybody had a smartphone. So everybody did not have a computer, but because they had a smartphone, we're now exploring a lot of different strategies, from YouTube to Facebook, Blackboard as a learning management system, video conferencing. And when we look at what goes on in the design studio, there's a necessity for a lot of peer-to-peer learning and collaboration. So we're using a software like Pinterest in order to develop precedent boards. And then we have a software that we came across called Concept Board, which Professor Asamoah will speak about, that allows for real-time collaboration, the ability to comment on images, like a virtual desk crit, and she's finding some real value with that. We all know about YouTube, so what we've been able to do is similar to what we're doing now using Zoom. We record the videos, host them on YouTube, and then share them as links on Blackboard. Is there a question?
Ya, te faltan una. Falta una.
If we can mute our lines if we're not asking questions, that way we don't, perfect. All right, so, oh, that was not nice. All right, so talking about physical modeling. All right, so in the center is our traditional method, right? You know, balsa wood, tools, materials, glue, things everyone has readily available, kit, you know, buy a kit at the beginning of the semester that has all the tools that they'll need. However, as a result, for us, we were on spring break when the campus decided to shut down for the coronavirus, and a lot of our students didn't have access to their tools because they had already left campus. So one of the things that Professor Swarnali and I started to look at is how can we really bring to the forefront the traditional, you know, the idea of using found objects as a more engaging activity for you developing models. And so Professor Swarnali, you can join in at any point in time. So what we've tasked our students to do, knowing that they can't go out and shop at Hobby Lobby or any local art supplies because it's dangerous to their health, potentially can't even get access to Amazon, may not be delivering in their area, or just concerns over that, is they've been tasked with going online, I mean, looking at spaces in their own house and to produce designs using materials that are locally available. This was a project that we explored a year ago in using found objects for our students to create furniture. And in that process, our students were able to design furniture out of cardboard, plastic bottles, shipping pallets, and plastic bags. One of our students actually turned plastic bags into thread and used old wine cork to make a seat for a chair that they created out of shipping pallets. So this was something we explored before, and now that was with a second-year design studio, and now we're exploring it with our first-year design studio, where we're meeting and having them take inventory of what's available in their own homes, and then using that inventory, look at what are some elements that are around their homes that they can redesign, but redesign them using the materials that are locally available and the tools that are locally available inside their own homes. Professor Swarnali, would you like to add?
Yes, so a little bit. I think you did a very good job explaining the project. So, you know, the little background or history is that we had a completely different plan for rest of the semester. We had, for that studio, particular studio, because it's the introduction to architecture, we had many conceptual drawings and exploration with the students so far. And we were just getting into technical part of it. Like we actually had the project that we planned earlier than this COVID happened was to literally draw plan section elevation of a given building. So we kind of changed gear. That is one way. I would say this was a very successful experience because our student totally welcomed it and, you know, jumped into the game. You know, we did not hear from anybody that, how are we going to do that? Or any of those kind of comments. They were all, you know, jumped into the boat and started, you know, doing the project. So one thing is that what the learning point is that our students are very flexible. You know, sometimes we are kind of timid or intimidated to explore. This is an opportunity taught us that yes, they would be willing to learn a lot more and non-traditional things if we kind of, you know, let them to.
And then Professor Asamoah, she's also exploring this in another way. So I'm gonna let her go ahead and speak about some of the things that she's doing, because as we're a first, you know, we're doing an introductory studio. And so she's in the third year. It's the first semester, the second semester of the professional program. And so her engagement with studios and model making is a little bit different.
Sorry, I had my mic muted. So with me, a little bit about my background. I have a master's in sustainable design. So I've done a lot of outreach with middle school and secondary school students in terms of developing models and things out of found material. And one of the projects that I got involved with early on in my academic career was the Future Cities competition, which is held nationally throughout the US. And the students are tasked with developing basically a futuristic city. And they have a limit in terms of cost that they can spend on materials. So a lot of their models and buildings are found taking apart computers and using plastic bottles or cans or whatever they can find. Just using recycled, they have to use recycled materials. And in correlation with that, they also have to incorporate this game. It's a digital online game called SimCity, which allows you to plan a city, plan for municipalities, plan for road work, etc. So it's all based in city planning. However, the material usage in terms of recyclables was very innovative. So I was talking to Mr. Daniels earlier on, basically suggesting that that is something that we encourage our students to explore. Take some things apart around the house if you can. Everybody, well, most people have an old PC lying around. You never know what's in that old PC that you can use to create form and space and indicate some type of architectural element. So that's what I would say to encourage your students to do, is to be flexible, be creative, and pull apart, take things apart, do what they would do when they were toddlers. I have 4 children, so they destroy everything, but they pull things apart, they create something new out of something that you wouldn't even consider usable. So that's kind of my thought process in terms of building models. We are a little further ahead in our projects with Design Studio. We started off doing art abstraction to develop their design concepts. So they had a lot of other models kind of lined up for the rest of the semester, but I told them, you know what? We've got your study models, we got photographs of your study models, we've got your art abstract forms. Let's focus on now taking this into the 3-dimensional plane digitally as much as we can. So they're utilizing SketchUp and Rhino, and one student told me about something called Inkscape today. So whatever they have available to them, it's just me basically as their professor being flexible, as long as they can meet the requirements of the design curriculum for the semester. I'm not too concerned what method that they use. It's just being able to convey an idea and a concept. I hope that was helpful.
Perfect. No, perfect. And right before I open it up, I wanted to also just throw out another option, and it really becomes because of what you were saying about where you are in your class. This wasn't something we were doing in our first year class, but this is something we've been exploring in our school, and that's photogrammetry. And one of the benefits, if you have a first year, say you have a first year set of students who you haven't put them on the computer, so they don't know how to use design software. There's a software called Agisoft, A-G-I-S-O-F-T, that they can do a trial, but they can use their camera and take photographs around their around their models that they create. They put it in the software, and through photogrammetry, it will generate a virtual model for them. The software, it does require some engagement. It's not as simple as as I'm explaining it, but it is a very viable solution for, say, a set of students that don't know how to model virtually, but you've been really exploring physical model making. This is how they could create a virtual model that they could eventually work with, or, you know, if you wanted to get them into, like, you know, SketchUp or Format or some other software, Rhino, you can drop that model in there, and they can continue to manipulate it. So I'd like to actually open it up to the group and see what strategies everyone else is exploring as we figure out what are we doing with our studios, especially with the physical model making, before we move on to the virtual collaboration.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
I think you have to unmute everybody.
Someone had a question about the software you just mentioned. Can you spell it for everybody, please?
Yes, it's Aggie Soft. I'm putting this in the chat. Aggie
Yeah.
Soft.
I think someone already answered.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Photogrammetry. Yeah, it's a very, very useful software that I've been playing with it for about a year and a half now, and we've gotten a hang of it, and it can be something that can, depending on the resources that you have, students can take photos, 180 degrees all the way around their model. They can send it to you, and pretty much you can create that model. Also, there's a question: could I take pictures of a full-size building? Yes, we're actually doing that now. So we're using that software to make models of our existing buildings on campus. Tuskegee is a National Historic Landmark, and so we're documenting a lot of the buildings using drone technology and just regular cell phones, and taking photos, and we drop it in. And the cool thing about it is that once you upload the photos, you pretty much go home, go to sleep. If everything was done right, you come back, your model is done.
If it's done right.
Yes. Yes, the sleeping part is great.
Yes.
But yes, the operative word is done right. It's nothing worse than to come back in after swearing you got some good sleep, and now you're losing sleep because your model did not go the way you wanted it to. But even with all the trial and error we've gone through, it still is. It's still if you can get the good overlap between your photos, which is an 80% overlap, you can get a really good quality product in a very short period of time. So I'd like to open it up now, because I know everybody at this point, we're probably all in our studios and wanted to see how others are faring, if there are any best practices that you've been exploring. Yes, Marika Snyder. Yes, so Marika is acknowledging, the patience. Yeah, there is definitely some patience associated with it. And what we've done, so we have second and third year students that have been playing with it. And we've gotten to the point now where they'll go out, they'll take a bunch of photos of anything. So we've modeled people, we've modeled existing buildings, and they'll go out, take all the photos, they'll come back and upload the photos, and the next, it'll be, the model will be produced that day. Anybody else? All right. Well, I will, then we'll move on to the next part. And if anybody has any other thoughts about the question is, are we altering the models after you scan them? Currently, no. However, there is definitely post-production that you can do, and you can import them into Rhino. They come out as a mesh, so it depends on the quality that you're looking for. But the end product is actually pretty good if if it's been done right, but you can bring it into Rhino, you can bring it into other 3D modeling software to continue to adjust those models. And it's actually a good way to bridge the gap between physical modeling and virtual modeling, particularly given the learning curve associated with virtual modeling. Okay, so let me go ahead on to the next part that we will discuss. Okay, so the virtual design and construction class, this is Professor Swarnali, so I'll turn it over to you now.
All right, thank you, sir. So virtual design and construction, or VDC, it's nothing new. I am pretty sure all of you are very familiar with the concept. This is a class we have been offering for a long time. This is basically my first time teaching it. The way I set it up, I set it up as a small business kind of environment. I have multiple students that are acting as different disciplines. Like there is a group of students that are acting as designers, architects, and engineers. And there are a group of students that are working as contractors. And this happened even before we had this lockdown with COVID and everything. So this class was supposed to run virtually. If you are familiar with that, this is kind of a concept you will see in any kind of AEC farm technically. It's kind of creating a virtual server. And at Tuskegee, we did have a little bit of challenge of setting up a virtual server for this kind of projects, because it was never done before. In real world, people usually they have a server, a Revit server. The software we are using are actually Autodesk products. So in real world, people would actually either buy the Revit server, they will buy a seat for Revit server, or they will have a physical server themselves. In our case, we actually were able to make use of Google products to use as our server. And I cannot give you much details because, we are in preparation of writing a paper on it, because all the products that we used, all the softwares that we used are free, readily available to the students. And we were able to make it run as a real life office, basically. So the model was that we have a central server space where our central files reside. And then every student had their local copies, which they will manipulate. And that actually will, so this is, the next slide, please. Yes. So basically, so we had this, the collaborative model in between that actually resides in the server space. And then we had different disciplines working on it, and they will have back and forth communication. So it's a live communication. It's not exactly kind of Google Docs, but it's kind of similar. So everybody can see everybody's changes and they can react to it. And so once that is done, so this part of the semester, we are going to take it to basically do the constructability study, which includes material exploration, real constructability, estimation, scheduling, and clashes. So this is how this class has been set up. And this had, when I started teaching this class, I had no idea what this would happen. However, this concept has greatly influenced how I actually, how I made changes to my other classes. Next slide, please, Mr. Daniel. So my other classes, so as Mr. Daniel mentioned that I'm actually part of construction science and management department. However, I cross over both because in even my work experience, I was actually working as a VDC manager. So I pretty much work with everybody. And I like to keep it that way. So for other classes that I teach that are predominantly construction classes like scheduling and material and all that. And some of them were design build focus, or some of them were learning classes. And once this happened, I realized that my presentation of how I reach to the students to teach them something has changed. The biggest advantage when I was physically teaching the classes, being present in a classroom, I used to repeat things at least 3 times so that, you know, they get it, like, you know, they kind of learn it. Here, I know that I only have to say it once because I'm recording all my lectures. Therefore, I know they have opportunity to go back and, you know, refresh their memory if they need to. The biggest disadvantage I learned, my posture, my own posture, my self-reflection. I realized I don't even smile when I teach. I'm so serious, you know, and I'm trying to change. I'm trying to be funny. I'm trying to laugh once in a while. I'm trying to say, less. That's work in progress. So all the self-reflection that I have discovered since I started watching my own videos, there are few things that I had to make change because of how this virus has impacted us. I'm using both Blackboard and Zoom to teach. Both kind of have these breakout sessions. And that's the particular reason I like that, because here the discussion happens, it's really priceless. The students, whatever topic or whatever question they're trying to research on, the amazing amount of innovative thought happens in these breakout sessions. And the best part is, especially in Zoom, you can hide yourself and get into those breakout sessions without them knowing that you are there. So, you know, if you ever have to use that. Group work, I always, in physical class kind of environment, I always prefer to give group work because, you know, that's the best way to, you know, have peer-to-peer learning. Here, it's kind of hard because, you know, at Tuskegee, we are very hands-on. We build stuff, we make stuff. So even for my same material class, they actually build a concrete bench. So, you know, we also build a brick wall. And those kind of group works are, well, I would say challenging in virtual environment. So what I did, I changed my focus. Instead of having them physically do something, I send them to do research. This is another way, I think, aspect of teaching. Instead of me telling that this is how this material works, I send them out to find out how this material really works. And most of the information they can get from the internet. So, you know, I don't anticipate they're going out to the library or some place to get those information. So that's one changing. Process learning. This is I think that's another big advantage of virtual learning, that we can document the whole process. When we are physically teaching, sometime we may lose how we have, we may miss to actually document the whole process. But here, because we are recording every seconds of this presentation, this itself is a huge data collection for me and for the students. So I think that process learning aspect is, it's really great in this way. Peer-to-peer learning. For, for that, I think initially when I started to kind of rethink my strategies for these classes was kind of challenging for me, because now the students are not, meeting with each other. However, the great part is that thanks to technology, they still have cell phone working, they still have different chat working, they have different student groups that, the faculties are not allowed in, that those are all working. So peer-to-peer learning is not really stopped. It did not cease. It just took a completely different form. They're still helping each other. They're still helping each other with assignments and project and everything. On top of it, and just to add a little more fun, I actually, I'm asking all my students to put a weekly video update of what they have learned this whole week. And we are putting it on Facebook. We could put it in Blackboard and make it like really formal, but I just wanted to have some fun with it. And we are preparing to, put it on our Facebook, and, we'll comment on each other video and find out what, how people have done it. And I think the students started to enjoy it because this is fun. This doesn't seem like sitting down and studying and, trying to learn something. So basically this is bringing the fun back. It is very boring sitting in front of a computer looking at someone. But I think, if we have little kind of projects like that, they really like it. And in this whole process, I think I am recording or collecting a lot of data. However, the things that I consider opportunity, or, the things that we need to consider before getting into this collaborative virtual space is, of course, technology. You really need to kind of consider what you have and what your students have. This includes software, as Mr. Daniel has already mentioned, that software, availability of software. All our computer lab is actually loaded with all the possible software you can think of for, architecture and construction. However, now that they cannot come to the lab, how do you make these softwares available to the students? And if they are not available to the students, what do you do? And then, of course, another challenge is ability and willingness of the students to adapt to this new environment. Now, when we started to use this, I'll give you an example. I teach one of the scheduling classes, and we are focusing on Primavera P6 and Microsoft Project. And now, both of them, we had them in our computer lab, and we have licenses for P6. However, P6 is not compatible with Mac. And half of my students, I discovered in last week, actually have Mac. So although they have a robust computer, I cannot run the software, the only software I need them to use. So all of those things you need to consider. So as alternative, we are saying, okay, so let's run Microsoft Excel for scheduling. We have, we know that that's not Microsoft Excel's strength. However, we are trying to adapt to this situation and find out an alternative that will work for everybody, and new ways to evaluate and deliver. This kind of prompted me to change my syllabus or rewrite my syllabus quite a bit. Before, there are a lot of grades and points were given for physical presence in the class, discussion in the class, communication and all that. Now, it's really hard. If you think about it, I have 30 students in my class. If I ask a question, if I'm in a physical space, I will say, do you know this? They will either raise their hand or will not raise their hand. In a virtual space, it's really hard for me to see who out of those 30 students actually raised their hands. So this is something I really had to think about it. Now, what do? Do you go in one of those polling software to get the answer? Or how do you do it? Do you ask them to, answer it later? Or what do you do? So this kind of made me thinking that a lot of things that was very easy in class, it's not so easy virtually. Another example is like, I work out problem on the board in class. And I asked them, did you get it? Now here, by that, exactly same thing. Now I don't know how many of these 30 students wants me to repeat the problem. Am I running out of time? Do you want me to cut it off?
Yeah, let's ask Professor Alison Wah to come on board.
Okay.
And then we'll open it up, and then we'll come back with any other questions.
All right, thank you.
So Professor Alison Wah, she's gonna share her screen. So as I mentioned, so following the last ACSA, or the first ACSA webinars, the question about the peer-to-peer learning, as Professor Swarnali brought up, we did a little bit of research and some of the published articles about how people were engaging with technology. And one of the things that they noted was that you needed to have an opportunity to exchange ideas in a really collaborative environment where everybody could be working together. And so the software that Professor Alison Wah is going to be talking about is Concept Board. So I'm going to turn it over to her to let her talk about how she's exploring this with her studio.
Okay, I'm not sure how well everyone can see this screen because it looks really small on my screen. But for the past week or so, again, I teach third-year architecture studio and design presentation. So for the past week or so, I've been meshing two programs together to create a collaborative online space for my students, and it's been going exceptionally well. Our university kind of totes Blackboard. I hate Blackboard. I hated it as a student here, and as a professor now, I'm just like, this is too much. So Zoom is my go-to because I can use the online free version, have the students download it on their phone. We have started a group me chat, so they know if I have it scheduled out now. We meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So on Zoom, we check in together as a class, and then each student has a scheduled slot time to meet with me via Zoom and via Concept Board. So Concept Board allows you to basically share a creative space and for the students to upload any information that they have produced, any drawings that they have produced. And me as a teacher, I can mark up their information and continue to talk to them on Zoom as I'm doing it. Now, Concept Board, the actual paid version, allows you to do the same collaborative thing that you would on Zoom, but I have not paid for it yet. So for the time being, we are using the free, as much free as we can. And any of my students can, you could share the board with any of the students. The board saves everything, all the information saves on the cloud. You can add sticky notes and comments, etc. So I have a video of just one of the sessions that I was doing with the student today. Kayla Hurd, she's just a very proactive student. So I sent her the link for her desk crit, and she went on ahead and laid out her particular desk space. I'm going to call it her desk space, and went about, setting up questions and writing notes herself before I even came into her desk crit. So that's from here on out, that's what I'm encouraging the students to do. Go on ahead and set it up, write your notes, whatever questions you may have, and we'll respond to it briefly while I have you online. And then I go on to the next student, take a swig of water in between and keep it moving. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this because it's about 30 minutes long, just so you can get a general idea of how it works. And if you have any questions regarding the basics, because I am far from an expert, but I definitely have some acumen in this area because I've been using it all week for all of my classes, for portfolio reviews, for our second year students who are entering in the third year, and also for design studio. So feel free, ask away. I'll play the video and I'll try to answer some questions in the chat area. Do we still have chat room? Chat area as we go along. So yeah, AOL 90s, that's a chat room to me. So much for signing on. So where do we want to start? Thank you for having this organized. This is awesome.
You're welcome. So I was just going to kind of tell you about the two new things that I have on here are those perspectives.
Okay.
And what I really ended up doing was at first I used SketchUp, and I was going back and forth between the programs. At first I used SketchUp, and then I went back to Rhino, but the issue with Rhino is I don't know what was really wrong with it. There was a certain button that I couldn't find to make it perspective-like. So what I ended up turning in on my last board was a flat section and not a perspective section. And so then I went back to SketchUp and I ended up downloading the full version of it. I had like a SketchUp Mate, and when I exported it as a PDF, the lines came out a lot better.
Yay!
And after that, I also downloaded Illustrator, so I went in and like cleaned up some stuff and corrected some lines there with that. So that's where these
awesome.
Now the squares that I have drawn on there, remember I was having trouble with like window placement. So these two sections are of the same building, obviously. The only difference is the stairs. It kind of shows you how the bathroom is situated under the stair.
Okay.
So that is in front of the one on top.
So what section am I looking at? Like what unit am I looking at in these sections?
One bedroom unit, and there's a mistake on here. Unit F on this board is a 1-bedroom unit.
Okay.
It says 2-bedroom, 2.5 baths, but it's one.
So just to pause this real quick and give you some background. So when you're uploading things on Concept Board, once you set up your space, number one, you want to use a Chrome browser, because if you're not using a Chrome browser, for some reason it does not work. I don't know if that's just a kink in the system or if they did it purposely. You want to use a Chrome browser. You go over to the left-hand side of your screen, or you can go to where it says board above and set up a new board for whichever student. I think this would actually be more helpful if I were to show you Concept Board in real time, because that gives you a better idea of how to use the space. So give me 1 second. Very, very user-friendly. I promise I won't talk for too long. Just to give you a gist. Can everybody still see my screen? Yes, no, maybe? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Swarnali. Yeah. So, as you can see, hold on. So sorry. This is me in class all the time. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what we're looking at. Okay, so we're going to share this space. So for this space, this is how Concept Board comes up. And you can go over here once you've logged in, created your password, etc., create a new board. I'm going to go to Kayla's board because it's very well organized and makes sense in life. And you go on here, she's already uploaded her items. I can upload more items. I can go to this toolbar over here and add comments and notes that are attached to little leaders. We can both in real time scroll to different things on the desk space to kind of view and zoom in on. I have a touch screen, so it's a little easier for me. And we both slide things back and forth. Now there's this little kind of map over in the right-hand corner, if you see my cursor wiggling around. When she's also in real time, it comes up as a red box. So I can click on this red box and go to whatever she's looking at as well. Yeah, it's just extremely helpful. Let me see. I love the sticky notes because I'm a sticky note person in real life. So the fact that I can do digital sticky notes makes me very happy. So I go on here and I pop in my sticky note and add some more color or put some more windows in this space. But these little, these comment sections are really cool because they kind of almost act as a message board. So you can zoom in here, zoom it in so you can, come on now, don't do that to me. Zooming in so you can screen, like see the screen a little better. And you can type a comment in here. Hey, loving your work. Save, and they can reply. Thanks, appreciate it, whatever. So ignore my spelling's horrible. So that's just in general how I've been using Concept Board. So I maintain some type of one-on-one contact with my students through audio, visual, on Zoom, and I screen share and record these sessions so that I can send them to Mr. Daniels, and Mr. Daniels can do wonderful things like this. So I hope that this was hopefully this was helpful to you, and feel free to ask any questions. I can't actually screen share and answer questions apparently with Zoom, but as Mr. Daniels is talking, I'll go back into the chat area and try to, oh crap. So one thing you have to be very careful about, because I do this all the time, that's why I said, oh crap. What thingy or tool you're using to kind of move around in the space. Always use the hand tool to pan and move around your screen. Never use the arrow. The arrow will, if you click on an object, will move things. And if you move things, your drawings kind of get distorted and your notes get out of place. That's the one great thing about this, because Zoom has actually an annotation tool that you can use. However, once you scroll down on the screen with Zoom, it loses all of that. They're no longer in alignment. So if you do it on this, within this space, you can zoom in, zoom out, move it around, come back with my little pen. I got a little pen. I can come back over here, highlight some more areas, sketch some more things on her drawing, which I'm sure she doesn't need that, so I'm gonna erase it. But it's very interactive. And what I plan to do next week is have all the students come on into one space, and we'll be critiquing elevations. So everybody will get a time slot to go on ahead and explain their things, and all of the students will be able to comment as they're going. So I see there's like a whole bunch of chat stuff going on. So I'm going to address that and give this back to Mr. Daniels. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. So the thing about Concept Board that sets it apart from Blackboard and Zoom and these other collaborative environments is that for designers, it allows us to collaborate on drawings and images in real time, in the same way that you collaborate on documents like Google Docs in real time. And so there were a lot of questions about like the interaction. People can grab and drop stuff in there at any time. You can draw on it. If you have a pen, it's actually perfect. I have a Surface, Surface Pro and the Surface Studio. So I've been able to use the pen in ways I normally didn't, where now you can make comments and you're making these comments directly on it. And it really does feel very similar to what you would be doing in if you were in the design studio. And you can also, because you can invite anybody, everybody could be invited to the concept board. They could play with it, and they could, they can make any changes that they would want to make, and make any notes that they wanted the student to refer to. So it's very similar to when we pull out the red pen and mark up drawings. You can mark up the drawings in the same fashion as you would have done, in person. Any other questions or comments about any of the content that we've covered? Okay. Well, I think we'll just leave you with a few things that we're learning about the collaboration. One of the things that's really, really important is to do training with the students in advance. Work with them to go through the tools and how to operate it. And I've found that, as I've been using all of the different software, we've given ourselves, maybe a half a session just to make sure everybody can log in, because, everybody's their ability, the browser they have may not be compatible. The email they have may not be compatible. The computer, there are a lot of different issues. And so giving them time to collaborate, giving them time to explore it and for you to answer and resolve any issues in advance is really, really, really important. Let's see. Every class is going to be different. So lectures, concept board may not be the best thing for it. Concept board I found to be really great for images as we see here, like in a design studio environment, or if you have a, say a portfolio, you can actually drop in a PowerPoint presentation and drop it into the space here, and then you can mark it all up as if you would in real time with a person. So you really have to figure out which tool works better for the class you're in. One of the lecture classes that I'm teaching, I tried to do concept board with that class, and it really was not good. But I found Pinterest was perfect for it. So students could go online, find photos, find videos, and create a board where we're not marking the board up because it wasn't that, but for like precedent analysis or concept analysis. They can drop all that information in there, and you can now explore it in real time as you would normally. So as you're looking at all of these, there's so many different apps that are out there, so many different software and different ways to use it. Just remember just to remain flexible. And I encourage everybody to see how can you do some things that you normally couldn't do in a traditional studio. This is really like the new norm, and we get to do some things we weren't normally able to do, and explore some software that we wouldn't have normally explored in our studios. So, Professor Asamoah and Professor Swarnali, do you have anything else to add?
Well, Mr. Daniel, someone joined late and requested if we could do like a summary, very short version, a summary of the session that we talked about.
So we covered physical model making and some of the ways that we have been using found objects and encouraging students to find found objects around their homes to create models, physical models. We talked about the VDC, virtual design and construction, ways that Professor Swarnali is using methods to do virtual collaboration with students in that capacity. We also talked about AggieSoft PhotoScan, which is a software that allows you to build models. And while we're still here, I can actually pull up an example of what a model looks like in AggieSoft that would help you see what it looks like while we're having this conversation. And then we talked about, we also talked about what Professor Alison Wah is talking about now, which is the use of concept board in order to make do desk crits with students. So I am going to share my screen. If you close out your screen, Professor Asamoah, I'll share this screen of one of the buildings that we have modeled with AggieSoft. And this is not a full building, although we can do a full building. This is just a portion of a building because we only needed this part. So if you're looking on the screen, this is a building of, turn these off. All right. So this is a building in, this is Brown Chapel in Selma, Alabama, that I had gone out and taken some photos of it. And with the photos, at the time, I wasn't taking it to produce it, but you can see with all the photos that we took, we used a drone and we're able to get up top and get down low. And the model was generated. We only needed this portion of the building. And the model was, the software was able to be used to generate the model, as you can see here on the screen. I will show you another one. This is of a bust of Martin Luther King that a designer, a monument designer here in Tuskegee had created. And one of our second year students actually, in our case, we needed to, again, this was before Corona, maybe like 3 weeks prior. As we were building a model of the space you just looked at, we needed the model of Dr. King's bust, and this gentleman had it. So we took photos of it, and these are all of the photos. So as you can see, you have to take a lot of photos. These were all taken with their cell phone, and you take photos from all different angles, and then you put it in the software, and the software will produce the model for you. And then you can take the model and you can export it into whichever software you need to work with. So there's some. So AggieSoft is not a free program. It is about either $12 or $1,500. We actually had gotten a grant to do documentation, historic documentation, and with that we were able to purchase the software, purchase one seat of the software, and our students have been able to, at will, as they need to work on it, plug into it. It does have a free version that lasts for 30 days that you can play with to see if it suits you. The thing that I find real valuable about it is that I can take a model. I don't know about y'all. I wasn't trained to produce, physical models of people. And so that would be a problem to me, right? I can model a building, but modeling a person is something else. But even in modeling a building, that would be, it might be a couple of days for me to get the building to be how I want it to be. Whereas I can take the photos, run it, and then come back, while I'm sleeping, come back and it's done. And that's what we've done that for a number of models where they've been By the time we came back in, the next day, the model was ready to be used. And the beauty of it is that it gives you the photorealistic quality that, reminds you of the actual building. And so for a student who has a physical model that they've created, they could actually create that, they could use photogrammetry as a tool to do that as well. Any other questions? All right, Professor Asamoah or Swarnali?
I think
Putting
I'm
an
good.
address in
Yeah.
the chat situation. If anybody has any questions that pop up in your head in the middle of the night, I'm an insomniac, so yeah, feel free. I'm here.
Same here. And we do have a QA session tomorrow. Is that correct?
Say it again?
Do we have a QA session tomorrow sometime, or chat session?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you,
So
Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Thank
just
you,
put,
Erin.
Professor Asamoah put hers in. I put Professor Swarnali's information in, and I put my information in. Thank y'all. I hope that this was informative and can help guide y'all as you're doing your work with your studios, and continue to push on through as we navigate these new times.
And also, if you guys, find something, please do share with us.
Yes. Please.
Yeah.
One thing I will say for all of you, for self-care purposes, schedule with your students, guard your time, because they're invasive and they think they could just reach out to you all the time now because we're online. I'm like, yo, I need me time. What are we doing? So guard your time, schedule some time for yourself in all of this. I know we kind of feel obligated to be very hands-on because that's what we're used to doing, but they will take full advantage of having all this access to you. They hit you up on Instagram and everything. Hey, professor, what's going on? Nah, Sway, like, pump your brakes. I need some time to myself. So take care of yourselves, get out, get some sunshine, breathe in some fresh air if you can, and then go back inside and stay away from the road.
And in the same note, I just wanted to add, I just noticed I gained few pounds, but just by sitting on a chair, attending Zoom meetings last 2 weeks. So
I'm working out as much as possible because this, I cannot.
So get your
Not an
exercise.
Yes, drink lots of water, get your exercise. All right, y'all take care and be safe out there.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
thank
all.
you very much.
Thanks, professors. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.